Okay, everybody, come right along with Belle and I on our very first 3-star short cross country. This is our first time at the level, and we're here at my favorite venue, Rebecca Farms in Montana. It is just a spectacular course, everything from amazing footing, amazing views. Every single jump is an absolute work of art. The show is run so well. It's truly my favorite one of the whole year. So here we go. We got the first jump. This little choo-choo train pops right over it. And now we're going to take a bit of a gallop and a left-hand turn up to the second fence, which will be a Canadian flag. Like I said, the footing here is just spectacular. Just so amazing and so beautiful. Here we turn around to the second fence up at the top of this little hill. Belle's just having a good little time out for a little gallop here. The plan was just to get her out and let her just kind of settle in and relax to the job. Now we're coming up to our first combination, and it's a little bit tricky because we've actually turned straight back towards the barns in the warm-up area. And it's going to go up this little hill and down the hill in a little bending line to a narrow, an angled brush. I have to really make sure she's not drifting right, which she did just a little bit, but she locked onto the fence and went anyways with that draw back to that warm-up area. And now we're headed out to the back. I was at the tail end of a cold while I was doing this competition. Unfortunately, between that and I also have just slight activity-induced asthma. Nothing that's ever needed to be treated, but my lungs are something I definitely struggle with. So I always make sure when I'm working and training in between these, I really focus on my breath and really being in shape there. But it's still something I really struggle with. I make sure I do cardio several times a week. Now we're headed up to this big, nice log table at the top, and we're going to come down to our second combination, and it's the first water. It was riding quite difficult. A lot of horses were getting eliminated at this fence, so I really made sure coming down this hill, I really gave her enough time to see it, and we got a nice shot into it, and just a nice easy 5 to this skinny out. And then we're going to wrap around to the left here and pop over this log. And she's just feeling really game, really confident, super exciting. We hadn't even gotten to go at the intermediate level since March, and this is now middle of July. She's only gotten to do one cross-country run since March, and that was in June, and that was just a prelim run. So we're still pretty new to this level. And she was just feeling awesome. I got pitched just a little bit forward there on the down part of that massive jump. We get a little wiggly to this very first element. I think she just got a little confused of what I wanted her to jump. But she was super honest here and popped right over it and then was straight as an arrow over this ditch. Then one stride to that skinny there. Now we're going to wrap around to another big table. I was wearing my watch, but I actually was not looking at it at all. Being new to the level, I didn't really want to push for time. And be too preoccupied with that. I just want to go out and go for what it felt like for a good pace for us. We get a bit of a longer shot over this corner, and I have to turn her a little bit harder than I wanted to. And we actually have a bit of a slip right there, but she gets back, she just slips with the hind end just a tad, but then sees that second corner and just goes right for it. Now we're going to go up this hill a bit. I'm starting to have some pretty hard trouble with my breath between the coughing from my cold and the little bit of activity-induced asthma. Didn't help, it was also extremely warm that day. So I'm starting to cough pretty hard here. Pop over this giant drop, head down to the water. There's a bit of a funny angle now that I have to wrap around this bush and then head back a little bit to the left to get a nice line on these two big tables, get a perfect 3. And she just feels fantastic. She does have a bit of an eye on this big roller coaster jump here, and I had to press her a little bit to it. But she really took it really nicely now because I was a little concerned. She normally doesn't look, but she definitely took a good look at that. And now we're going to wrap around here and do our very first bounce on course. Of course, we've schooled bounces before, but we've never had it on a course. And she pops over the first element here and just bounces right up that bank, no problem. Super pleased with her. Again, at this point, I'm really struggling to breathe. Coming up here is another big table. It's a frangible pin, so it means if we hit it, it collapses, and that's actually what ends up happening I saw a longer stride than what was really there, and I pushed for it, and then she had to put in a bit of we were too close, and we took a really big hit to that. I nearly popped off, and sat up, took a breather for a second, kind of felt how she was feeling. She was feeling totally fine. We did get an 11-point penalty for that frangible table. Super, super thankful that it was there. It definitely saved us. And then coming around, we're almost finished here. And again, I'm really struggling to breathe. So I just took it a little bit slower. She just locks onto this combination and just makes it feel like we're going around a novice course. Just super easy. I'm pretty much telling her at this point she just needs to carry me home. And what a rock star she absolutely did. We're going to wrap around here to the right and do a nice Turcaner. We could have a bit of a quick step in, but it's no problem to her, and she just pops right over it. Just not as fluid as I would have liked it at this point, but still no problems. Now we're going to wrap around to the left to the last combination on course, and this can ride quite spooky, but she actually did really good with this first element, and then definitely had an eye on that second element. Excuse me. Still struggling with that cold. But I just had to just ride her up to it a bit, and now this big table that's a bit narrow and a big drop on that backside, and she just sails right over it. And we're just going to go through this little area here and then head up the hill and do our last two fences. What a star. Again, I didn't even look at the clock the whole time. I was just so pleased with her at this point, but still just trying to breathe and survive. We just had 2 to go, and so I just really focused on trying to keep it just a really consistent rhythm coming up to these last 2. They were quite big tables, and I just wanted really good shots over them. Got a fantastic one over that. Just keeping that rhythm, keeping that time to make sure we're not rushing to the end, and get a nice shot over this last one and make it through the finish flags. And oh my gosh, I was stoked. At this point, I was so done. It also didn't help that it was super hot that day, 95 degrees. So they were taking extra special attention in the cool out area, making sure they had enough vets available to be checking horses. I had a fantastic pit crew. I was super fortunate because I needed to hop off and just take care of myself for a bit and get my breathing under control. My activity-induced asthma definitely showed up that day, along with my cold. I was struggling pretty hard, and thankfully I had such a good crew to take care of my horse. I didn't even have to worry about her. I was so fortunate. So I just pop off here and hand her over, and they start immediately taking care of her for me by cooling her off, icing her, getting her tack off, and I just need a moment. I was struggling hard. Friend came up, gave me some water. That was super helpful. And then I ended up taking a nice seat. Unfortunately, I did have to hang out with the paramedics for about 15 minutes because they just wanted to be on the absolute clear side and just make sure that I was okay. And I was. I just needed to breathe for a little bit. So I got to hang out with the paramedics. But it was all good. They're just doing it out of abundance of caution because of the heat. Some people were dealing with heat stroke that day. For me, it wasn't really the heat. It was more of my activity-induced asthma and the cold. But yeah, so that was our very first 3-star. It was exhausting. It was fun. I couldn't believe how well she did. And there I am, just laying down on the grass. Nate's helping me up. But thanks for joining along on our very first 3-star short at Rebecca Farms in Montana.